Hey y'all, let's check. So I know y'all looking like, why she so dolled up? Because this time I did my eyebrows better than that time I told y'all I was trying before. But today's chat is very special. My friend Shantae, who works for Social Works, which is Chance the Rapper's non-for-profit organization, reached out to me. They've been doing a series of workshops where they pretty much promoted on all of their social media pages, their YouTube, that's filled with different professionals in different areas giving different skills. They got people dancing, doing mindfulness, yoga, makeup classes, teaching. They doing everything to really appeal to their audience and give them stuff to do at home. And so she asked me did I want to spill the knowledge, and I don't ever turn down the opportunity for exposure and to share some knowledge. So that's why I'm all cute and all that jazz. So yeah, the second segment of what'll roll in after this part is pretty much what I'll be sending to them for them to put on all their lives and just stream live all at the same time. So I just wanted to give y'all a little preview so y'all wouldn't be caught off guard, because I'm just about to come in as my more professional self and introduce myself, and y'all probably be like, why is she telling us who she is? We already know. So that's the gist of this. That's why I'm so cute today, all that jazz. So I hope you guys enjoy the knowledge that I'm going to be, sharing with everybody. So buckle up. Hi everyone, my name is Brittany Rogers. I also go by Me Marie, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about my top five favorite coping skills. So, by profession, I am a therapist. I'm a licensed professional counselor and a certified alcohol and drug counselor, and I have been working in mental health since 2014. I've worked in different capacities. I've worked with um, any population you could pretty much think of, young, old, all different types of races, people from different backgrounds, people from different socioeconomic statuses. And so I'm excited to be here on the social work social media pages to be able to share a little bit of knowledge. I know that right now everyone is talking about what a difficult time this is, right? We kind of hear it, all the emails, all the messages, all of our commercials. They're like, we're in these unprecedented times and stay strong and we're going to try to get through this together. And I appreciate the energy, but I feel like there is a lack in really discussing what are some concrete skills that we can use to just get through tough times in general, not just now, but really more so when our emotions are super high. So, like right now, we are dealing with a combination of emotions. We have boredom going on. We are isolated, so we have less connection with others, and so, pretty much the way that social distancing works, instead of stay at home order works, is that we are all spending more time with ourselves. And sometimes when we are forced to spend time with ourselves, there are thoughts and feelings and, maybe previous situations that come up that cause us some pain or we're uncomfortable with sitting with that. So I feel like usually we use the busyness of life to avoid all of these things pretty much. And so once you kind of are stripped of all of that, like we have been, we have to sit with ourselves. We will use our, work, school, friends, socialization as an outlet. And right now we don't have that as much. So we're really having to kind of deal with some of the issues that we think about late at night before we go to bed, the things that keep us up, the things that we've avoided talking about. And this can it's not always an easy process. It's not always easy to acknowledge. So usually a lot of us can identify things that we typically do to help us feel better, right? So most people are familiar with the common or recommended skills for getting through a tough time or dealing with uncomfortable emotions. So journaling, distractions, so listening to music, reading, engaging in hobbies, breathing exercises, meditation, yoga, positive self-talk, positive affirmation. So these are the things that we more so commonly hear when it comes to what are good coping skills. But right now, because we are more susceptible to anxiety, to depression, to feelings that are painful from the grief that we are experiencing, and not just grief from people dying, but the fact that we're really having to sit with a lot of disappointment. There are people who look forward to summer, vacations, graduations, birthdays, baby showers, all year long, and we've primed and all, I can keep going. But we've looked forward to this stuff all year long, and now we're having to sit and accept the fact that it's not happening. And so that's not a good feeling. It's not disappointment is something that usually sits with us a little deeper. But outside of what's going on with COVID, I feel like these are skills that I teach people at treatment or in therapy, and I feel like the world needs to know about them. So today, um, I really want to focus on skills that we can use in high stress and overwhelming times because usually in those situations, when things hit the fan, we look for things to make us feel better that are more so instant. They offer us instant gratification. So this is how people end up, using alcohol, using drugs, developing eating disorders, self harming, because usually in some way, shape, form, or fashion, we feel out of control. Especially right now, a lot of us feel like we don't have any control on what's going on. And so people cling to things that give them a quick fix and allow them to forget or avoid or to numb. And so really when we think about like how we're taught coping skills, there's never really been a clear cut, class in school or your parents sit you down and talk to you about stuff. It's just stuff we kind of figure out. Like really, when you think about it, in the media, that's how people end up with substance abuse problems, or more so, alcohol abuse problems. Because what does the media show us in our movies and our television shows? When we see somebody's had a bad day and they get off work, they go drink. We've all seen that. They got their own liquor cabinet. It's like a common thing. You go out with your girlfriends, you're venting, you have a drink. And so I feel like this has created, a enforced image in people's heads that that's one way to cope. And we learn to cope, how to deal with painful situations or uncomfortable situations from our family, from our parents. And sometimes we don't realize that we are doing things that are ineffective for our mental and for our emotions. So today, I really want to talk about coping skills that change the mind, coping skills that challenge your way of thinking, that take practice and intention. And really, what it comes down to is when it comes to the skills that I'm going to talk about today, is you have to have the desire to want to do things differently. You have to know, deep down, okay, when I get upset, I do this and I know it's not effective. So I need to figure out something else to do in those situations. So just disclaimer, I have my computer here because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything or forget to say any important parts to these skills. So if you see me like leaning, it's because I'm trying to, move down and see what I got on my screen. So first skill is called opposite to emotion action. This is a DBT skill. DBT stands for dialectical behavioral therapy, which pretty much is the therapy that acknowledges that we can have two opposing things existing and still be a cohesive person. I can feel sad and I can still have happy experiences. So that type of thing. Pretty much two opposing or two opposites being able to coexist peacefully, as long as we acknowledge that both are there. So opposite to emotion action pretty much is laid out like this. Every emotion has an action urge, right? So if I feel fear, the action urge would be to procrastinate or to run away or to avoid. If I feel anger, the action urge would be to display aggression or to attack. If I feel sadness, the action urge may be to withdraw, to isolate, to not talk to anybody. So what happens is we increase our ability to not give in to the not so good emotions. I feel like all emotions are good. They all serve a purpose. But the emotions that we typically feel like are not good or not comfortable, the ones we don't want to sit with, we increase our ability to not give in to that and still do the things that we need to do or that we're committed to doing when we decide that we are going to do the opposite. So a couple steps to practicing opposite to emotion action. You first want to identify your emotion that you're feeling, and name it. You want to call it exactly what it is. So I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling depressed. Um, sorry, I'm feeling anxious. One thing I do want to recommend is making sure that you aren't just clinging to anger, because usually when we get upset, we like to say, oh, we're angry, but sometimes we use anger to cover other things. So anger may cover disappointment, it may cover sadness, and just other forms of hurt. So we want to get specific about what the actual feeling is, not just generally label it when there's actually other stuff going on underneath. The second step is you want to check the facts of the situation to evaluate if your emotions are pretty much warranted. Now, I'm not going to say, I feel like everybody's emotions are valid, but in certain situations, is the level of emotion, is the intensity, is the duration called for based on the situation. Are we acting rationally, pretty much? So we want to be able to check the facts and evaluate if this is actually, going to be effective. If whatever my action urge is that actually going to make me feel better? So let's say somebody cuts you off in traffic, right? You're driving, somebody does something they're not supposed to do. The natural and the normal response and appropriate response would be to say, to maybe have to feel annoyed, to have some irritation. But if you decide that in response to feeling angry, you're going to follow this person to their house and give them the middle finger, then that may be uncalled for. That action may not fit the situation or cause it to be better. So the third step you want to do is you want to identify and understand the action urge you're having as a result of the feeling. So, different examples. You want to be able to tell yourself you're sad. The only reason you don't want to go to the event is because you'd rather sit at home in your feelings. Don't act like some of y'all ain't ever wanted to sit at home in your feelings because you're just not in a good space. But we also know that that may not make us feel better either. But sometimes we just want to sit in it. So that's what that step involves, is just acknowledging the fact that the only reason you don't want to go to this event is because you're sad. Now, am I saying that that's right or wrong yet? No, I'm not. I'm just acknowledging that the action that I don't want to complete, or the action urge, which is to stay home, is a result of my sadness. So the fourth step is to evaluate if your expression or the act you want to take is going to be effective, if it's going to make the situation better, if it's going to make it worse. So again, quote unquote, if I stay in the house and I don't go to the event, I'm probably going to feel worse, which is usually what happens when we give into our emotions that are sometimes tied with maybe some depression, with some anxiety. We don't do what we should do. So if I know I have an obligation to go to this event, maybe my friends are going to be there, maybe, it's a commitment I made, but I'm feeling sad or I want to sit in my feelings and that's why I don't want to go. Is there really a good enough reason to not go? Is it going to actually make you feel better? So, pretty much, if your emotions doesn't fit the facts of the situation, or if acting in the way that you want to act is unwarranted, then you want to do the following. So you want to consider what the opposite actions to your action urge is. So again, the action urge, let's go back to staying at home. The action urge is to stay at home. The opposite of that is to go out. So you do that in they say do it in as many ways as possible. So if I'm feeling sad, my action urge may be to sit at home on my couch and not do anything. The opposite of that would be to get up and go outside, or to get up and exercise, or to get up and go to a friend's house. To do something other than what my sadness is telling me to do, which is to sit in my feelings on this couch and not move. How effective is that going to be? It's not. So you want to continue to do this until pretty much either your emotions settle or they change. So what happens is when we are super, super, attached to whatever the emotion is that we're experiencing, usually once some time passes, and everybody knows this, you can feel one way and you could go and do other stuff, or some time can pass and you cannot feel as riled up. You cannot feel as sad or as angry. Um, so sometimes times matters, and what you do with the emotion matters. So me sitting on my couch in my thoughts, being sad, isn't probably going to help. But if I get up, I go see my friends, I go get some laughs, I go enjoy some food or whatever I'm going to do at this so-called event to make me feel better. So that's what I want to give into. That's what I want to do to help address whatever it is that I'm feeling. So pretty much, this skill is really good to use if you ever deal with symptoms of depression and anxiety. So lack of motivation, sadness, um, pretty much being in a not being in a good space because you're either so depression can cause us to feel unmotivated. Anxiety can make us fearful of what will happen, which can cause us to avoid and procrastinate, as I mentioned before. Both can keep us stuck in habits that are comfortable but yield no progress. So both of these emotions, both of these feelings can keep us in a space where we do not make change because just doing whatever the depression or the anxiety is telling us feels better. Um, you don't want to feed depression. And what I mean by that is I like to tell people that depression is like a monster. And the more you give into your symptoms, the more it grows. The bigger it gets, the nastier, I like to think of it as an image, like slimy and stuff. It just becomes harder to get from up under it. So sometimes you have to prove to yourself that if I do these things, I might actually feel better because the depression will convince you that that's not the case. The depression will be like, girl, no, stay home. Don't answer that phone for your friends. Don't go nowhere because that's what it does. It keeps us in a very low spot. So we don't want to give into it. We don't want to feed it. We want to do the opposite of it. We want to starve that depression. So ultimately, the goal of this skill, do the opposite of what your emotions are telling you to do. It doesn't mean that you won't still feel sad or feel fearful or anxious. It just means you've made the decision to not let the emotions stop you from doing that. Because a lot of times we, especially when it comes to like achieving things, we can have a lot of fear. But if every person let that fear stop them from doing what was necessary, we wouldn't have any successful people. So when we don't honor, and then another thing you want to remember is like when we don't honor our commitment sometimes, especially when it comes to knowing that we're dealing with some depressive symptoms, we usually end up feeling guilty, like or regret. So guilty if you don't go or don't uphold the commitment. Um, and regret maybe if you, especially now in the world of social media, you sitting on your phone and you see everybody else there having a good time and you just decided to stay home. So now you got to deal with all of those other feelings on top of the fact that you just didn't have a desire to go and you just weren't in a good headspace. So sometimes we need to push ourselves to get to a better space. Okay, so that's skill one. Skill two is stop. Sorry. Okay. Skill two is stop. And pretty much stop is meant to be used in very stressful situations where you need to pretty much calm yourself down ASAP. Like you don't have any room to go and sit and journal. Like this is something that you implement when you are at your peak, you get ready to go off, all of that good jazz. So stop is pretty simple. It's an acronym. S. Stop before you react. You're not thinking clearly. You are moving off emotion. So if you know that you get very reactive or impulsive when people do things to you that you don't like, whether it be, disrespecting you or saying stuff to you that you don't, care for, or just, not treating you in the way that you want to be treated. If you know you're the type to pop off, you gotta stop and before you react because you're known to probably give into, your emotions. And the way if you're managing this well is think about in the past when you got super upset, what did you do? If it caused more harm than good, then you probably didn't make a very rational decision. So S, stop before you react. T, take a step back. So that literally means taking yourself away from the interaction or like completely not engaging in whatever is going on or whatever is occurring. So you don't act impulsively. So think twice before you get ready to go off or say something and then remove yourself. Take a step back from it. Oh, observe. So you want to consider and you want to sit and think about after you've taken your step back, what's coming up for me? What's in my surroundings? You want to just have a really good awareness of what's going on. What are my thoughts and feelings? What are the thoughts and feelings of the other people involved in this situation? or the people observing or the people, that are a part of it. P, so proceed mindfully. Before you act, you want to have an awareness of what it is that you're thinking and you're feeling, and again, what other people who are involved or around. This is where consideration comes from. Just because I feel a way doesn't mean that I need to act so harshly in a way that could affect somebody else. So in this moment, I not only need to consider myself. Same thing, when you have friends or family around or kids or whatever you want to call it. You have to think about how your actions or how you want to react is going to affect other people in the picture. Um, so you want to proceed mindfully. You want to, after you've taken a step back, you stop, you've observed the situation. Now you can go into it with a better understanding of what do I need to do because I've allowed myself to take a breath. I've allowed myself to um, be removed from the situation. And usually the reason I know that this skill works is because sometimes all of us have had really, bad arguments with people or fights or, just not very good situations. We say a lot of stuff we don't mean or that is hurtful or that just doesn't come out the way we would want to. Then later on, we sit on it, we calm down, and then we think about a more rational or a more respectable way to approach the situation. So, what we just need to do is enter that step before we react, before we decide to just go with our first instinct or our first impulse. Um, so, you want to be able to just simply assess: is what I want to do going to make the situation better or worse? And so the goal overall of this skill is just to not be so reactive, to not just want to pop off, to not just want to go off. And if you struggle with managing your emotions when you're upset, whether that be with anger, this is super useful so that you just don't continue to make bad choices or bad decisions based off the fact that you're just so taken with emotion, no matter what that emotion may be. Okay, so the second skill, sorry guys, the second skill, okay. The second skill is called the 2 minute rule. And pretty much this helps with easing anxiety, worry, and rumination. And so for anybody that doesn't know what ruminating is, it's pretty much overthinking. It's obsessive thinking. It's when you get in those feelings and you can't seem to shake them. Like it's just all that your mind can seem to focus and think about. So pretty much you'll have two steps that challenge you to become aware of how you're exerting emotional energy and be able to really like assess how are your thoughts contributing to finding a solution to whatever your problem is in this current moment. So the idea is pretty simple. When you notice that you are in constant worry, that you are overthinking, that you are ruminating, you don't stop. You allow yourself to do this for 2 minutes. Um, so it's pretty simple. You time it. That's step number one. Time it and just allow your thoughts to go wherever they go. To continue to obsess, to continue to think about, oh, I have this test coming up. What am I going to do? Like, oh, what if I fail? What if I do this? Those anxious thoughts that we have, usually when we're out of control or we don't, can't see a clear ending or picture, we sit there and we obsess. So you let yourself do this for 2 minutes, and then you're going to ask yourself a series of questions. Number one, have I made progress towards solving my problem? Number two, do I understand something about the problem or my feelings about it that I haven't understood before? And number three, do I feel less self critical or less upset than before I started thinking about this? So, pretty much, if you cannot definitively answer yes to these questions, that means that you're wasting your time. It means that you're pretty much sitting here overthinking and you're not, or thinking on something that you're not getting closer to fixing or changing or solving. So usually when we do this, it's because it's a piece in here that we cannot control, and we will really sit and hold on to something so tightly, worry about it so much when we don't have a hand in it, and that's what we want to stop doing. So in order, after you've sat, you've allowed yourself to do it, you've asked yourself these questions, you want to, number one, acknowledge that you are worrying excessively or ruminating. You want to label it, you want to call it out. That's the best way to get out of the habit. So if you're sitting there, you sitting in your thoughts and your feelings or whatever, and you want to say to yourself, I'm picking at this again. That's my favorite. That's my go-to is to say, like, you're picking at this again, stop. Because if you let the mind, it'll just keep going. It'll just keep repeating those same thoughts, those same memories, those same pictures. But you have to call it out for what it is. You're picking at this, you're ruminating. Stop it. And now, just because you tell yourself your brain to stop doesn't mean it's going to stop. But that's the second part of this, is to just acknowledge it for what it is. Don't ignore it. Don't act like you don't have no control. This part you have control over. And then you have a choice. You can choose to continue to give your all your energy and your emotions and thoughts to this, or you can make the decision to turn your thoughts and your actions towards something that you can control and something that matters in the moment. So if, let's just say, my boyfriend broke up with me, I'm sitting here and I'm really ruminating on the fact that I don't know what I did wrong. Why would he leave me? Like, was I not pretty enough? Was he messing with somebody else? You go out, you know how it is when you're going through love problems. Your brain goes a mile a minute to try to figure out what went wrong. And when we do that, then we have to sit and ask, like, do I know anything else? Have I made progress to solving my problem? No, we still ain't together. Do I understand something about the problem that I didn't before? Maybe you had a bit epiphany, maybe you connected some dots, but probably not. Do you feel that self-critical? No, because you're sitting here trying to pick yourself apart because of what somebody else is doing. We don't do that around here, okay? So yeah, the second piece of this would be to say, okay, I am picking at this, I'm ruminating. Let me go put this energy into something that is important to me. Whether that be I go work on a project that's important to me, or I go spend time with my family or my friends. A lot of what it takes to get inside your own head and to start managing your anxiety better is to know how to divert that anxious energy somewhere else and to distract until you kind of chill out. Now, does it mean it ain't back there? No, I'm gonna keep saying it. It doesn't mean that the emotion changes or you're just completely rid of it. No, it just means you sat with it, you've acknowledged it, and you're not giving into it. You're not giving it all the power. Okay? So, what's that? Four. Four is also super simple. It's what I call a daily gratitude and acknowledgement sticky note challenge. So I actually, this is a skill I didn't learn from really anybody else. I kind of came up with it on my own. I was in a space in my life where I was just really struggling to see the positives. I felt like I was going through a string of negative experiences, and it was really, affecting my mood. And I was like, I need to figure out how to be more grateful. Because one thing is, if you are not satisfied or working with what you have in the moment, our higher power, God, the universe, whatever it is you believe in, will be reluctant to just send you more because you're not sitting and being thankful for what you currently have. So it's like, how can I make it a point to feel better about just the course of my life and where it's going? So what I started to do was I would take time after each day, in the evening, and I would write down, as many pretty much positive things that I could think of that happened to me that day. Even on a day where I felt like this was a bad day, I'm still going to sit and run the course of that day back through my head and figure out what is one thing that I can take from today that was positive. And it doesn't matter how minor you think it is. So for me, if I gave a homeless person a couple dollars, if I had a good conversation with somebody at work, if I had a fun night with friends, if I went on a nice date, like I would write all of this down. So I would have a pad of sticky notes, sorry, and I would just jot down with the day. I would put the date at the top, and I would just jot down, what good happened to me that day. and I got a bag, but you can use a tissue box, a mason jar, whatever you want. Um, and I would put at the end of finish, I would put those notes, those sticky notes in there. And what would happen is on days when I would have when I wouldn't be in a really good space, when I would maybe have a bad attitude, when I was struggling to really see, what's going good in my life, I would go and I would pick one or, a few out and I would just read them. And they just acted as really good reminders that despite what's going on, good things are happening to you, whether it be you being good to other people or other people being good to you. And those things we want to acknowledge because the way life works and the way our brain seems to work is that we will sit and stay stuck on the bad things that are happening. We will stay stuck with the negativity that comes up in our day to day life. And when good things happen, we sit in a moment and then we don't sit and reflect on those. We don't sit and really acknowledge them. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get in the habit of validating myself, my life, my experiences without looking to others to do it. Like that's one of the biggest things you can do for yourself is validate your experiences. And what doing those notes did for me, it just helped me know that that I was purposeful, that my life had meaning, that it's not all bad. Because sometimes we get in that headspace where we just feel like everything is all bad. And the thing is, life is neither nor all good or all bad. We got to take the both. We got to balance both. And by doing this, I was just able to keep the good things in the forefront because the brain will catastrophize and emphasize all the negative and push all the good stuff to the back. But you want to, by doing this, you end up being able to challenge some of that negative self talk that you have. Oh, this is never going to change. You know, bad things are always happening to me. Whatever, those negative things you say to yourself when you sit and you put in writing what's important to you, what you value, what's the good in your life, then you can challenge that and it'll put you in a better headspace. So that's skill number 4. And last but not least, we have skill number 5. So the skill in itself is called cope ahead. I'm sorry. I just need a smidge of water before we finish this thing on up. Much better. Okay, so the skill itself is called cope ahead. And pretty much in addition to coping, to be able to cope ahead, you have to understand and plan for what we call triggers. Now, I know people have heard this word. Janae Aiko got a whole song about her triggers. Um, so, in general, the word is kind of used loosely. What is the real thing? Um, what is a trigger? So, a trigger pretty much can be an emotional state, a person, a place, a thing, a thought, an activity, or a situation that elicits uncomfortable or painful emotions. Sorry. Um, Painful emotions such as anger, anxiety, guilt, shame, or it can bring forth like a memory or familiar situation that we just don't like. So, um, it can be something from your childhood. We develop different triggers across our lifespan based on the experiences that we have, right? So, a trigger is really just something that makes you want to get out of character. It makes you not act in the way that you know that you should act, the way that is going to be a more progressive, a more elevated version of yourself. It takes you back maybe to a space that you don't want to be in. And so, by understanding our triggers, we have the ability to cope ahead for them, to be able to make changes or do things that allow us to prepare for us to be potentially exposed to them. Because that's the thing is like people will say they have this trigger, but you can't avoid it. You can't. Like life is filled with things that we don't like. Life is filled with things that make us uncomfortable. So we have to get to a place where we face our triggers head on if necessary. Because the best thing is, if you can avoid a trigger. Um, and so by having the self awareness to understand and recognize our triggers, we can develop ways to avoid them, or if they cannot be avoided, we can cope ahead. And that's pretty much what this skill is about. So, have always I have some examples. Um, Coping ahead pretty much can mean making changes to your lifestyle, your day-to-day life, relationships, the people. If you suffer from anxiety, sorry, said that wrong. So the example is pretty much if let's say you suffer from test anxiety. A proper way to go about coping ahead would be to start with not procrastinating when it comes to studying. Procrastination, as I kind of mentioned earlier, derives from fear, which is combined with avoidance. So here in coping ahead for that specific example, we can use our other skill, opposite to emotion action. So number one, we're going to identify that we're feeling fearful of what's to come if we take the test. I'm anxious because I have a test coming up. Why am I anxious about the test coming up? Because what if I do bad? What if this happens? What if that happens? We sit and we think of a long range of things and possibilities when we don't want to do something. Okay, so your natural, action urge that we talked about, maybe to avoid. You, because you know how to do opposite to emotion action, will do the opposite. So you'll start by, and again, this is all example. I have test anxiety, so I'm going to start by creating a plan to give myself more than enough time to prepare. Okay, that means not procrastinating. That means doing the opposite. What is the opposite of procrastinating? Starting early. Okay, you will decide that maybe I need to advocate for myself with my professors, with my teachers, and let them know that my anxiety is really bad when it comes to test taking. So maybe they will give you extra time, or you don't have to feel rushed and over where you don't have to feel rushed or overwhelmed because of your concern that you're going to tank. And so at the end of the day, you may still experience some anxiety. You probably are. Like test nerves. Nobody likes to take tests. Nobody. I mean, if you like to take tests, it's probably because you're super smart, which is great. But the rest of us, average folks, like nobody really likes to take tests. So you get a lot of nerves from it because usually you know that you passing or failing or doing well or not doing so well on that test means something bigger for your future. So you're still going to have some anxiety. But it will probably be less than if you waited until the week of to start preparing for the exam. I know for me, when I was in college, more so specifically in grad school, when I had a big paper coming up, I would, my first instinct would be like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, I would get anxious about it. I would get, overwhelmed. And what usually helps me is writing things out, which is why I said in that example to create a plan. So if I know that this paper is due in 3 weeks, it has 6 sections that I need to do. I'm going to maybe decide to do a section every 2 days from the time I get the assignment, or maybe starting 2 days after. But I'm going to make a plan for how am I going to make sure that I complete this in a timely manner. Same thing with the test. If I know the test is on chapters 5 through 10, I have 2 weeks to study. Mathematically, how do I need to break down these chapters to devote time to each where I don't feel like I am pressuring myself? Now, some people will tell you, I work better under pressure. Okay, if you say so. But sometimes we don't have to. You don't have to work better under pressure if you just plan properly. What's the saying? Proper preparation prevents poor performance. Okay. Um, but again, if you know that you struggle with certain things that you want to change, it's different if you're completely okay with how you've been getting things done. If you like to stress yourself out and have your heart beating all fast at in the nick of time, that's your business. But I'm saying for those of you all who want to go into situations with a little more clarity, feeling a little bit more prepared, coping ahead is the best way to do that. So anticipating things. And the thing is, coping ahead really works when you consistently practice your other healthy coping skills. When you do these things on a day to day, when you do opposite to emotion on a day to day basis, when you do the 2 minute rule on a day to day basis, or when they come up, you are better equipped to deal with stress and feelings of being overwhelmed. So one last example with coping ahead that I can give is for me. I know that me and my father, we don't fight often, but when we do fight, it's usually over like finance related issues, right? Money, whatever you want to call it. And I know that he sometimes does not always communicate in the most effective way, and that gets under my skin. I can acknowledge that. Like, I'm a professional on this side. So when I know that there are certain conversations that me and my father need to have that can cause me to get very upset, I think ahead, before we have those conversations, I know like this is my trigger point. Like this is something that really gets under my skin. How do I go into this conversation without exerting a whole bunch of emotional energy because I've allowed the situation or him to get me all riled up? So in advance, I may make the decision. I seem to yell when I get mad. I make the decision. I'm gonna whisper this whole conversation. You may not actually whisper, but when you go into the conversation with the intention to whisper, you do a better job at controlling your volume, right? So before I know I'm having a conversation with my dad or that may come up, I get myself mentally prepared. Even when parents will just text you and be like, call me. I don't know what you're getting ready to talk to me about. So let me just get myself in a good headspace to have this conversation, to not get pulled out of pocket. And that's pretty much all coping ahead is. It's being able to anticipate whether it be I'm going to a family function, I'm gonna see that cousin there that I really don't like, or that auntie that I know was talking mess about me behind my back. How am I gonna act or how am I going to react when I see her? Am I gonna go outside? Am I gonna keep my cousin Pookie close to me who makes me laugh so that they make sure that I don't go off? You know, we all have these moments. We all have them. So my goal with this was just to normalize these experiences and let you know that there are ways to address them. There are ways to change your behavior. And like I said, all of the skills that I talked about today, they are just good for everyday practice. They are good for, whether it be you may not be dealing with depression, but you may just feel super lazy today and you got stuff that you need to get done. The opposite to emotional action. Okay, let me get up and do parts of what I can, what I'm willing to do. Let me make a contract with myself. Sometimes appealing to your reward system is the best way to cope with doing something that you don't want to do. If I do this, I will allow myself to binge watch for 5 hours later if I get my work done now. So I hope this was informative. I really just want to be able to equip everyone with new skills, with new ways of thinking that really aid in being able to have proper progress. Because it's easy to stay stuck. It's easy to stay stagnant. It's easy to use the fact that we're dealing with the pandemic to um, validate, some of the things that you're experiencing, which I completely agree should be happening. However, when you see change or when you're ready to make change, um, or do things differently, you have the knowledge, you have the skills. Okay, so I hope this was informative. Okay, and make sure you all stay connected with me. My Instagram is at Bring It Brat, BringBrat _. We're getting ready to transfer into the Q&A section so I can give you guys more information on what it is that I do, the services I offer, and answer any other questions that you may have about coping skills, about mental health, about therapy. I love to talk about therapy. I love to push people to go to therapy. Whatever it is that you feel like I may be able to give some good perspective on. Okay, so I'm looking forward to that. Stay tuned. Hi everyone. So I hope you guys enjoyed that segment. Um, I'm going to spend this time answering a few questions that come in. So don't feel shy. As much as you feel comfortable sharing or asking, please do so. So let me take a peek at what I have. So the first question that I see is how can we identify a defense mechanism that we are resorting to in times of stress while it is happening? And so the best suggestion I have is to kind of do an inventory. So think about when you've had high stress situations, what do you typically resort to doing? And when whatever you end up resorting to doing, how have you recovered as far as what is the result? So, are you happy with the way things have turned out, or are you not happy? Because if you aren't happy, then that may mean that there is a change or a shift that needs to happen in our behavior. So essentially, um, you want to think about you have to learn to get into your own head and not just pass off certain things as the way you are, because that's one thing that I noticed that I feel like we do a lot is sometimes we get stuck in our ways, and so we're just like, well, that's just how I respond to stuff, that's just how I am, and that can be a cop out. So we want to make sure that we are really thinking or paying attention to what other people tell us, because sometimes somebody can tell you the same thing repeatedly, or you can get the same remarks from multiple people, and sometimes you don't really understand like where these comments are coming from. Like, you always do this or you always do that, and if that's something that you notice, then it's probably worth at least taking a look at. And really thinking about, where is this defense mechanism coming from? What have I been through or experienced that has put me in the position to feel like I have to um, push back? So a perfect example is, a lot of people don't realize that when we are passive aggressive, that in itself is a defense mechanism. So our tendency or our urge to be passive aggressive usually comes from the fact that we've had experiences where we felt like we weren't heard, or we felt like we were invalidated. And so usually when somebody says something passive aggressively, it's because they want to translate a message, or they want to express a need or a want, but they don't really want to have to be soft or vulnerable or put themselves in a position to maybe be rejected. So, or judged. That's another big one. So if I say this in like a joking matter or a snarky matter, I can get this person to understand what I'm saying. And so, again, it usually has to deal with the fact that in multiple instances, whether it be in your childhood or as you've grown up, you just haven't felt like your opinions were received well, or that people really validated or listened to what you wanted. And so the best way to really get to the bottom of a defense mechanism is to look at the outcomes of situations and how you're responding, and think about like where possibly could that response be coming from. Okay, next question: what are some productive slash less destructive ways to de-stress? So I think it just depends on what you're into. So art, um, television, movies. Sometimes if we use social media the right way, that can be very positive and uplifting, or just give us a good laugh. I know I love Twitter. I could be having any type of day, and if I go on Twitter, I'm guaranteed to get some laughs, and so that puts me kind of in a better space. So you really just want to identify like, what things do you enjoy, why do you enjoy them, and really make sure that you're being intentional in placing those things in our lives. And that's one thing that I notice, like when people start to really get burned out from their stress, is because they're not being intentional enough about incorporating the things that bring them joy, the things that bring them peace, the things that bring them happiness into their lives. So one thing I encourage people to do, whether you be a student or you're working, is to try to incorporate, at least 2 days out the month where you do something that you really, really enjoy. And again, that can work as a reward system. If I do everything that I need to do and accomplish certain things, then I have these 2 days where I do absolutely nothing. Or I take myself on a small adventure or vacation, or you have to make sure that you're putting these things in your day-to-day life, so that way you have an outlet. Okay. Next question. You mentioned pushing yourself. How do you know when you've pushed yourself enough for one day so that you don't do more harm to yourself? So it's really important to be aware of your limits, right? So being intuitive with yourself as far as, do I feel like I did enough today? Like, knowing what takes enough for you to feel productive, and what gets you in a position where you just feel like completely overwhelmed and burnt out. So you want to make sure that you're giving yourself some flexibility. So let's say you create a to-do list with 10 things on it, and you tell yourself, if I can get 8 of these 10 things accomplished, I'm good with myself for the day, and whatever doesn't get accomplished, we'll do tomorrow. So you want to be able to have some flexibility, but also have like a goal and understanding like, okay, if I don't completely meet that goal in this specific timeline, what how can I make adjustments and honor the fact that I'm just tired or I'm worn out. Next question. Tell us about your YouTube channel. What are some topics you've talked about? So my YouTube channel is Keeping It a Buck with B. It is targeted mainly towards millennials. I will say that maybe high school seniors, college students now can probably definitely relate. I typically don't market towards younger crowds, so I know that social works appeals to a younger population. I think it just depends on, I feel like nowadays teenagers are exposed to a lot of topics, and the things that I talk about, I think give good insight and perspective for what it's like moving into that young adult, mid adult, late 20s type of era, and the things that you want to be aware of, because usually I'm talking about things that I've been through or people that I know that have been through, that we've grown from, and things we've experienced from that part of our lives. So I pretty much talk about everything. I talk about mental health. I talk about current events, trending topics, the latest topics as far as like gossip and all of that good stuff. So relationships, dating, that's a big one. Family, I talk a lot about, dynamics as far as how do we get more successful at understanding how to date and how to have healthy and successful relationships. Last question. Do you have these skills listed anywhere? I don't, but you will be able to find this video on my YouTube channel as well as Social Works YouTube channel. So be on the lookout for that. Where did I learn these coping methods? It's been across a span of time. At my last job, they were mainly DBT, which I talked about earlier, dialectical behavioral therapy focused, so I learned a lot from them. And these are just things I picked up over the years from workshops, from having to teach different groups. These are just the ones that really stuck with me. Why does rumination occur? Can it be helpful at all? Rumination typically occurs because it's just another form of overthinking. So not being able to get out of our headspace. And rumination typically doesn't help. Worry can be helpful. Having some anxiety can be helpful. It can push us towards a solution and problem solving. But ruminating, it just involves cycling your thoughts, and sometimes that's unproductive. I think we are running out of time.
30 seconds.
How can we avoid negative thoughts taking over positive ones while stuck at home? So you really just want to be intentional about what you're feeding your mind. If you can make sure that you're following positive social media pages, that you are reading good material, that you are watching things that, like I said, make you happy or that are a positive influence, then that's what you want to do. You also want to get in the habit of charting these negative thoughts and challenging them. So if I have a thought that says I'm a failure, you want to be able to say or list out, I've accomplished a lot of things. I've done this, and that challenges that negative thought. So that's the best thing you can do, is to challenge these thoughts as they come up, prove that they are untrue and that they are irrational.
Clock is 0 now.
Oh, do I have time for a thank you?
Time for wrap up.
Okay, so I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. Please make sure that you tune into the rest of the segments that Social Works has set up for this workshop. Check out their website and donate. Remember, this is for a great cause, and we want to make sure that our seniors, our Chicago seniors that missed out, they really get an opportunity to relive those moments that they missed this year. So thanks, everybody.